This week's weekly parsha is Parshas Shelach. Shlach lecha noshim, send for yourself men, spies. I think this parsha is a very important parsha story for service members because it's the importance of tracking the mission, being aware in the midst of battle what the real mission is, the big mission is, and not losing sight of that. It's so easy to get lost. I remember in high school there was a poster that I liked that was called, "It's hard to remember you came to drain the swamp when you're up to your armpits in alligators." But the idea is that life gets that way, and I think that's what this week's parsha is all about. Since the dawn of mankind, the mission from God has been to create a dirba tachtenim, a dwelling place for God down here in the physical world, to take the infinite God and reveal him in the finite world. Somehow we have to reveal God's hidden essence within this very worldly existence. And that's what the parsha is about. So let's go to the story. What happens in this week's parsha? The people come to Moshe and they suggest that we should send out meraglim, spies, ahead of us into the land of Israel to scout out the land, to take the land. Now remember, this is a part of the story where we've left Egypt, we've gone to Mount Sinai, we've traveled through the desert, and we're about to enter the land. So we're still within that first year. I'd like to call it a honeymoon year, but not quite. So this is the first year, right? And the people come suggesting we should send out spies to scout out the land. And God says, Shelach lecha, go ahead and send it for yourself. Meaning, if you feel it's necessary, you could do that. I'm not going to stop you, but it's not necessary. It's kind of like if you have a person who, a used car, right? Says, can I take it for a drive? If he doesn't want you to take it for a test drive, then you can't really trust it. If he says, hey, yeah, go ahead, take it for a test drive, maybe then you don't need to, because if he's that confident it'll be fine, then you don't need to take it for a test drive. So Moshe thought the same thing, is if we say, yes, you can send out spies, then maybe they won't care to anymore. But they do. They choose to send out spies. But think the spies that they send out, these are not just, guys off the street. They choose some of the most qualified and dignified men, leaders. These are not just Moshe Yankel here. These are dignified leaders that are chosen to go out. And because they're leaders, they make a mistake. Because they're thinking about the capabilities of the people, they make a mistake. So think about this for a second. This is the generation, right? This is the generation that has attained the highest spiritual consciousness of any generation in history. They lived daily with man from heaven, water from the rock, tabernacle in their midst, witnessed daily miracles from God. These are the ones who witnessed the miracles of leaving Egypt and the splitting of the Red Sea. They even received the Torah on Mount Sinai from God himself. How could this generation fail to have faith in the impossible? Just because it seems naturally impossible, but we've done this already. We've done the impossible. We've done it time and again. So why do we have the lack of faith here? It's a good question here. These scouts, they went out, they scouted the land, they did the entire width and the length and breadth of the land, they covered everything, and they brought back examples of the fruit, huge examples of the tremendous food that's there, the tremendous fruit that's there, and how profitable the land can be. But they came back with a story that the land swallows its inhabitants. What does that mean, it swallows its inhabitants? Their fear was that it would be impossible to remain holy like they've been for the past year in the desert with God taking care of everything. Their fear is that how can you remain holy and yet still work the land? How do you manage a family, keep a 40-hour plus work week, raise the kids, do the dishes, do the laundry, and keep Torah and mitzvahs? The Torah seeks to govern every aspect of our lives. The Torah requires we vanquish our own yetzer hara, our animal instincts, and overcome them to follow the good, right? And the Torah, learning Torah, there's never an end to Torah study. It's an infinite thing. So how is all of this humanly possible? And that is exactly the point. Do not underestimate God's infinite ability to help us succeed in all of this. We can conquer the land. We can do it all. But we have to have bitachon. We have to have trust. And we have to have the amount of trust that we have calm resiliency, that it will work with no fear. God's our creator. He knows us better than we know ourselves. He's fully aware of our strengths and our weaknesses, and he continues to test us to prove to us, not to him, he knows. He continues to test us to prove to ourselves how much we can really do. But we have to try. We have to put forth the effort. We have to climb the mountain, right? We have to aspire to live a spiritual life in the midst of all of the daily tasks. And we have to submit humbly to God's mission to create a dwelling place for God down here in the physical world. And we can do this. A human person, a human leader could misjudge the abilities of his team. He could misjudge the monumentalness of the task. But God knows all this. And he can manage all this. We have to trust him. And we have to trust with such certainty that we can remain calm and unflappable in the midst of the chaos and the challenge. The error of the spies was a lack of absolute trust. They need to remember the ultimate mission and trust that God can and will most certainly bring us there. In a world where God is revealed in the finite and all the people around the world can see it, and the knowledge of God will be as the sea covers the seafloor. Don't forget the mission. And don't forget who sent us. We certainly have the resources and the ability. We can do this. Have a great week.